Ukrainians say Russian forces are moving back from areas they'd occupied but may now be focusing on new targets.
Russian police detain at least 200 anti-war protesters across the country, but support for Putin's military operation continues to rise. It's the final countdown. Hungary's Viktor Orban and Peter Márkizai appealed to voters one last time before Sunday's parliamentary election.
At least 35 people are thought to have been killed in the southern Ukrainian city of Mykolaiv. Rescue workers have continued to dismantle the rubble and search for victims after the strike blasted a hole through the side of the building in central Mykolaiv. Russian forces attacked the regional state government's offices on Tuesday morning. Meanwhile, the city of Brovary is back in the hands of the Ukrainians after being occupied by Russians. Many residents of Brovary have returned to their homes and shops are starting to reopen in the city, which is 20 kilometers east of the capital, Kiev. I would say that life is not very good, she says. All the shops are closed and many people have run out of food. The bread hasn't been delivered for 3 weeks now. Russian forces are loosening their grip on Kiev, but Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian forces are now massing in the east and south of the country, especially in the areas held by pro-Russian separatists in Donetsk and Luhansk. It's thought they will then push north towards Kharkiv. But even more peaceful parts of Ukraine, like Odessa, cannot be safe havens. As our correspondent reports, 3 missiles were fired from Crimea on Friday night.
He says
the missiles that were launched from Crimea to this region of Odessa end up shaking the calm that's been lived in recent days here, where people began to try to resume normal life. But these missiles that passed during the night and were shot down by Ukrainian anti-aircraft batteries provoked new moments of panic.
Sérgio Ferreira de Almeida, Euronews, em Odessa, na Ucrânia.
Pope Francis says he may travel to war-torn Kyiv. The pontiff made the announcement to a plane full of journalists en route to the island of Malta. Postponed for 2 years on account of the coronavirus pandemic, the focus of the visit was supposed to be on the plight of migrants, but His Holiness did not ignore the invasion of Ukraine. From his signature Pope Mobile, the head of the Roman Catholic Church greeted large crowds in Valletta before meeting President Vella and the First Lady at the Grand Master's Palace. The Pope blasted Russia's President Vladimir Putin for launching a savage war in his most critical message yet. Francis also denounced the European Union for turning away Libyan migrants and said Europe must show solidarity in welcoming them. Human rights groups have condemned the EU programme which trains Libyan coastguards to patrol and stop migrant smuggling operations before bringing would-be refugees back to shore. While frontline Mediterranean countries such as Italy have backed the initiative, activists say they have documented widespread abuse in detention camps where returning migrants are being held. This woman carrying a bouquet of white tulips was escorted away by Russian authorities under the heavy snow in the capital's Zaryadny Park, a short distance from the Kremlin. The human rights project OVD Info says Russian police detained at least 200 protesters condemning Moscow's military operation in Ukraine on Saturday in 14 cities across the country. While many Russians have condemned the war, others have stepped out in support. Russian state television network Razia 1 reported pro-war rallies in Moscow, Vladimir and Kemerovo. Civilians stepped out with flags and posters to congratulate Russian soldiers. According to a new poll released by the independent non-governmental Levada Center, support for President Vladimir Putin is rising. Findings show that Putin's approval rating rose from 71% in February to 83% in March.
Hundreds of Russian citizens are leaving their country for Georgia. But first they need cash and then to find a place to live, and they have different reasons for being there. I decided to stay here until something changes, he says. I was here last month before all that unpleasant mess. I don't want to be in a country which rages a war, that's why I arrived. I don't know how long I will stay here, he says, but this year I definitely will. Some months, a year, maybe even more. There are no problems booking hotels, but apartments are harder to come by, and some Georgians will let Ukrainians stay in their flats.
I've been renting out apartments for about 5 years now. I have 2 flats in the old part of Tbilisi. I've had clients from all over the world, from Europe, from Asia, also from Russia. I also hosted Ukrainians, but for now, considering the ongoing events, we prioritise citizens of the Ukraine.
In mid-March, more than 30,000 Russians arrived in the country. More than 12,500 are still there.
During an entire period of month, you have tenfold number of Russians arriving in Georgia. It causes some suspicion, whether these are really refugees or these are politically driven out from Russia and kind of thinking how to save their businesses, etc. Or these are so-called subversive elements that are specifically on purpose sent to Georgia.
But Georgian security agencies fear some Russian paramilitary groups might arrive, as they did in Ukraine in 2014.
Orban or Europe? Just one of the slogans the United for Hungary coalition has repeated during its campaign. In the wake of Sunday's parliamentary election, the opposition, united under Peter Márki-Zay, told his supporters, "We are at the gates of victory." After 12 years in power, Prime Minister Viktor Orban is presenting himself as a guarantor of stability in turbulent times and says voters must choose between war or peace. While the margins are narrowing, his nationalist conservative Fidesz party is still leading in the polls. This pensioner says, "I am sure that Fidesz will win because our people are shamefully more concerned about the price of gas than what is happening around us and in our neighbouring country." There has to be a fight against this regime in general, this administrator says, and definitely against social injustice, to redress the inequalities that have become very noticeable in Hungary. The polls will open at 6 a.m. local time. The weekend has arrived, and civilians in Mitrovica, northern Kosovo, are making the most of the April sunshine, enjoying their coffees outdoors. Serbia is preparing to go to the polls on Sunday for the country's parliamentary and presidential elections. While ethnic Serbs in Kosovo were allowed to vote in previous elections, polling stations will remain closed on Sunday. Prime Minister Albin Kurti says constituents can only cast their ballots at a liaison office. But ethnic Serbs in Mitrovica say they feel abandoned by the Serbian government. This can only happen to us, thanks to those down south. What do you mean? It is well known who, those who are bothered. We are a nuisance to them. We are a nuisance to the whole world. Both governments should think about us and about our rights, and it is my right to vote. Who asks the people today? No one. Following recent demonstrations, locals hope Sunday's election will not fuel renewed tensions. We hope it will be peaceful, always and forever. No one needs a war, absolutely no one. With the help of God, not only tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, but always, there should be peace among the people. Kosovo declared independence from Serbia in 2008, but experts say it is important for the government to reach out to the Serbian minority. Kosovo's Serbs will never be comfortable if they are guided by a narrative that comes from Belgrade, he says. If they do not have a voice, a mission of their own, for life here, for their rights, then they will never be comfortable. On Sunday, ethnic Serbs with Serbian citizenship will also be able to travel to Serbian cities on the border with Kosovo if they want to take the opportunity to vote.
Spain's main opposition party has chosen Alberto Núñez Feijóo to be its new leader. Members of the Popular Party on Saturday chose the veteran politician to help lead them to victory at the next elections. The right-wing Popular Party hopes to unseat Socialist Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez when the country next heads to the polls.